The American Beauty Tim uses was made by Robust Tools. All our lathes have a 7-year warranty. Our tool wrists feature a hardened rod on top. Lots of sizes to fit your lathe. Robust, because the making matters.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a wood turner, for wood turners. Today on wood turning, we're going to make an Easter egg, but not just any Easter egg, a special one. This one glows in the dark. Well, the first thing we have to do is find some wood, so we're going to go on a hunt for that. And hey, somebody left a basket for us. How neat, that'll come in very handy. We'll put our egg in there and look for the rest of the wood. Ooh, there's a nice piece of maple burl. I wonder who's leaving this stuff. This is like some really strange Easter egg hunt. Ooh, I wonder what's hidden in here. Nothing, don't feel any. Oh, there's something. All right, now we got some turning to do. Man, I wish Easter had been like that when I was a kid. That would have been great. Found some really good wood out there. These are all burls. These are really lightweight. You can just tell by holding them, so they're really dry and the wood is not that dense. When I made this prototype, I was using hard maple, and so when I put in my discs and drilled my holes and stuff, everything had a nice crisp clean line. So I've had this block of maple burl, I think it's ambrosia maple, drying for nigh on about 15 years, believe it or not, and it had this one void in here I couldn't work around, so I'm going to use that for today's project. And you can make these eggs any size you want. I mean, it's really cool. The one thing I did about it was I made sure I made the bottom flat on this so it would sit at night. And actually I want to show you one thing. I'm going to turn off the lights and you're going to see the effect on this and what we're after. You can kind of see it on camera here. This looks a lot better in person, but you can see the glowing on there. And as I rotate it, you know some things aren't as bright as others. That's because the dots are not as thick. The thicker ones have more luminescence towards the edge, and when we get into this, I'll show you how I pulled that off. But the cool thing is, you can get all sorts of colors. And these are going to glow a lot better when I put light to them. But you can also see, here's a test group I have going that we're going to use later today. It really looks cool. And believe me, in person and at night, these will glow for hours and hours and hours. Well, now that the lights are back on, let's prepare our blank. Now, if we look at this one, it is just about 4 inches thick and about 6 inches long. And again, I want to get rid of this inclusion right here. So we'll go ahead and make a mark 4 inches out right here. And we'll just go ahead and make it into a straight line now. And this is what we'll cut off on the bandsaw. Now, where did I put my safety glasses? Oh, there they are. Okay, now, got my safety glasses. We're gonna go ahead and... You ever get the feeling you're being watched sometimes? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and raise this up because when you use a bandsaw, you want to make sure that you have this. It's hard to do. I'm on the wrong side. You want to have this just about right. You don't want to have this way up here because that's a lot of blade and that could be pretty scary like that. So anyway, I've got a little bit of a blade exposed, and we're going to turn this on and we're going to make our cut. Now, since this is such valuable found wood that came in my backyard, I just want to quickly mark the centers on this thing so we have a good balance on it. There we go. Flip it over, mark up, point at these little edges, get everybody get in the same place to play the same game. There we go. Good. Now we got our center marked. So when we mark this, we're dead center and we're not going to waste any wood. Get this out of the way, and we need a drive center. I like to use a Steb drive center because it's the one with the little spring in the tip. And so if I get a catch, it's simply going to slip on these little teeth here rather than grabbing on and tearing the wood up. So I'm just going to take my center mark, put it on there, bring my tailstock up, and then go right into the center there, lock everything down, and that looks really nice and balanced. So bring our tool rest up, make sure nothing hits. It's at the right height, about halfway up. That looks good. So I'm going to get my goggles and my rough and gouge, and we're going to start turning. Let's take a second to pause because this is a burl, right? If this was a tree and the grain was running this way, a rough and gouge would work really well. But just as a test, let's try this because the grain is so swirled on this that a rough and gouge might leave me a rough cut. No pun intended there. So we'll see what this feels like and works like. It seems to be cutting fairly well, but as we start getting into the straight grains coming at us like it would be a bowl blank, you're going to see tearing. See, we're seeing tearing there. We're seeing tearing there. It's not bad. I could keep going at this for a while until I get a catch or something, but this puts a lot more stress on the wood. So let's go ahead and go here with a 5/8 inch bowl gouge with a V groove on it. I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. And now what we're going to do is, the difference is, show this to you, Brian. You can see how wide and big the rough and gouge's blade is. So a lot of that blade is touching the wood. Well, when you have end grain hit it, it wants to peel it. But if you look at the bowl gouge, it's a nice little tip. So you're taking a small amount of wood off. So it nibbles away at it without really ripping it. And so you can come at a little bit different angle with it too. So you cut, you slice more than just yanking off. That did not sound right, but you get the idea. So we'll try this now and see what we do. And also speed is really important because if you go too slow, you don't get a very good cut. So we'll speed this up in a minute once we feel secure with the piece of wood that it's not going to go falling apart on us. Okay, now we'll look at the grain on that, and that actually felt worse, but it's a cleaner cut. There's less tear out. So that is a great way to do this. So I'm going to work on this a little bit and get it to a rounded shape, and then we'll start shaping our egg. Okay, that looks pretty good. We've got it rounded out the way we want it. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to put a tenon on this end that we put in the chuck. How'd that get open? Huh. Weird. So the handy dandy tool I want to start with is my parting tool, and we're going to clean up this end here. It's a little wonky. And you want your tenons to always have a flat bottom, so that's why you want to take this tool and just clean it up. And I'm going to ride the bevel, and as it rides the bevel, it just slices away the wood. The shavings coming off of this are beautiful, aren't they? Not bad for a piece of dry burl that I found in the backyard somehow. So the next thing I'm going to take here, and I know this is a little bit weird. Well, let me make two more cuts. I want my tenon to be about 2 3/4 inches in diameter, because that's the size jaws that I'm using. So I'll take away a little more excess wood. On this, as long as you make a tenon that you can grip, it doesn't bottom out, and most importantly, you have a, what do you call that? A dovetail to it. And it fits your jaws right, you've done a good job. So I'm taking my fun little tool again, the one I'm still designing and working on. I'm not there yet, but it is one dastardly looking grinding job, isn't it? So I'm trying to figure out how to make that simple. But you could use a skew if you want to. You could use a bowl gouge, but the important thing is where this intersection is right here is crisp. You don't want that rounded off or it'll affect the way the jaws hold. So I'm just going up in a little bit and scraping off the underside of that. And now I'm just going to make the dovetail by pushing in here. And now I have the perfect angle to go up inside of my tenon, inside of my chuck jaws with this tenon. Now, we've got the blank reversed, everything's mounted on here. I brought the tailstock up just to give myself a little more support. Something goes really radically wrong, you know, you could knock it off there, although it's hard to do. I am going to take my bowl gouge and start working on this to shape it. You could probably use a spindle gouge at this point because it has a small surface that touches the wood too. But I wanted to show you, this is one of my prototypes I did. I had this great idea of taking this mix that we're using, the luminescent stuff, and actually doing channels and filling it up. Well, you put it in, it runs right out. I tried putting tape, everything I could do around it. I had a luminescent lathe for a while till I could figure out how to chisel it all off. It didn't quite work. But you have an idea now of the shape that we're going for out of this piece of wood. And you can make these eggs any size you wish, whatever, you know, floats your boat. And they can be big, little, large, it doesn't matter. This time I wanted to use a really nice looking piece of wood, so in the daylight that this would be really, really pretty being burl. So that's the whole idea behind this project we're doing this way. So I'm going to pick my speed up here. I have a loose little piece of wood in there I'm worried about flying out. So we'll just start taking nibbles of wood off of here. And we're just going to start bringing the sides of this down. And then once I get the rough egg shape done, we're going to do some manipulations of the wood with a different tool. Because what I don't want to do is take this down to the final shape right now, because we're going to turn some off in another process in a minute. So anyway, just give me a little time to turn this egg, and then we'll move on to the next step. Think of this as a large bead, by the way, so just sneak up on it. Sorry, I have my mouth full then. Think of this like a large bead, and we're just sneaking up on the cut. So just continue to do that till you wind up with whatever you think is a good egg shape. Now we're ready to drill some holes. Okay, get ready for the hate mail too. Look at this gorgeous piece of wood I found amazingly out in my backyard. Oh, that is so beautiful. This by itself will make a phenomenal egg. It's a starburst pattern, everything. Believe it or not, like I said, this has been sitting on my shelf for 15 to 20 years. So what am I going to do with it? I'm going to drill holes in it so it'll glow in the dark. Ugh. I know. Yeah. I'll pay for it in purgatory. Anyway, so I've got my drill, and I went ahead and put a piece of tape on here because I want to go a specific depth. I don't want to go any deeper. I don't want to go any shallower, because it makes a big difference on the project. This has not been sanded yet. This is still the tool finish on here. So I'm going to sand it in a minute, but I've got to go through a couple steps before I do that. Now I've got it locked down, so it's not going to rotate. So this is where we just randomly decide, okay, I want a hole here or there. I'm coming in at an angle that tries to make this surface parallel with that. This is parallel with the surface as much as I can. I'm using a brad point bit, and you can see the bit tip touches, so it gives me something to hang on to. There we go. I might go a little bit deeper. I think I missed my mark with the tape a bit. There we go. That's good. So that's one, and we'll probably, let's say, I don't know. What do you think? let's try coming in from down here. It still is painful. It's such beautiful wood. I'm trying to take my time on the cut. I want a really sharp bit too, so I don't do a lot of tear out on the edge, because the cleaner the intersection is here with the plugs that I'm going to put in a minute, the easier it's going to be for me to finish and to sand this. Because the stuff we're going to use, like I said, in a minute, is hard as a rock. So we need one here in the center. That's obviously not the aesthetic thing to do, but so my deal is I want to drill a lot of holes in here, but enough that it looks good when it glows in the dark, but also I want to make sure that I don't drill too many holes that look pretty doggone garish. Although, looking at this piece of wood and the fact that I'm going to put iridescent stuff in it right now, I probably am on the garish side already. But That's how it goes. Okie doke, let's keep drilling here. Okay, I think we have enough of that hole size in there. I want to cover up this beautiful wood with a couple more holes, but I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and get a Forstner bit and drill those in there. Once I have that done, I'm going to take you over to the bench and we're going to show you how we mix up the fluorescent mix. It took a little while to get to this point because, like I showed you on the other egg, I thought I could just pour this stuff into the wood and it'd work. Well, that doesn't work because the wood's round. So if I poured the goop into here and then wanted to get to this hole, well, I do that, then that's going to run out. So the deal is that to make this as easy as possible, that's why I drilled those holes, a very specific size. And I made myself a little cookie, or a, I don't know, what'd you call it, a cupcake dish, where I drilled the same size holes that I'm going to use in here to make plugs. Now, this product that I'm using is glow-in-the-dark product. It's not ultraviolet stuff. If you put this under an ultraviolet light, all these packages show green. But I have a bright green like you'd normally see in the glow-in-the-dark stuff you had as a kid. Then there's a real rich green and a real rich blue that I got. And also real rich is a good way to say it because this is by Glow Ink, glow-in-the-dark powder. This is Ultra Green V. These cost me anywhere between $30 and $40 for a 4-ounce bag. This stuff is expensive, but it's used mainly by watchmakers and people like that and jewelry makers to put little bits on the hand so it's luminescent and glows in the dark. So that's a pretty good deal. Then the medium I'm going to put this in is called ice resin. Now you can use any 2-part epoxy you want. Go for it. I have no problem with it. But in researching this, this is what the jewelers use because it doesn't yellow. It gets hard as crap though. I mean, it is it is hard. If you lived in Oklahoma, there's a lot of cows around and then we're talking hard crap. It's out in the fields everywhere. But the deal is that I need to mix this in a certain way to where it comes out accurately and the way I want it. And as we go, I'm going to explain some little cool things I found out. So we're going to turn on our scale here with the cup on there. So now it's at 0, right? So they recommend that you probably put in about 1 part, maybe a little bit more, of powder to 5 parts of the epoxy, something like that. But believe me, you will mess with this and get different, how would I say, adjustments, whatever works for you. But I'm going for a 1/2 ounce right here. And they recommend, now this is going to be a 1-to-3 ratio, so everything's going to be 1/2 ounces. They recommend when you use this ice stuff that you use a minimum of 1 ounce of each one in it to get the proper mix. But just for this, I'm going to do half because, again, this is expensive too. It's about $40. I love you guys, but this gets expensive. So I'm going to bring this up to where I have 1 ounce on my scale. Getting close. We're at 0.6. This is weird. It goes 0.7, then it'll jump to 0.9. I had this problem the other day where I kept adjusting my mix. And so that's 0.9. I don't believe it. Here we go. A little bit more. Get up to 1 ounce. Come on. Close enough. Believe me, that's close. If it hung in that long at 0.9, it's got to be 1 ounce. So we're going to go to 0.5 now with the other part. One's a hardener, one's the other. I don't know which is which. But this one's quicker to come out. It's more fluid. So the recommendations on this ice product is that you thoroughly mix this with the fluorescents, right? So, good. And in doing so, they want you to take this then and let it sit aside for 5 minutes minimum so you can get all the bubbles out. Well, I'm not worried about that because I'll show you in a minute. But here we go. You can see it blending in there. You can see the fluorescent stuff in there, or the glow-in-the-dark stuff, sorry. And so I want to make sure that's a really good mix. So I'm going to work on this a bit. This has a 30-minute working time, which is awesome. So you're not rushing yourself, you're not in a hurry, and I'm sure you can find another epoxy off the shelf that do the same thing for you in a much bigger bottle and a much better price. But again, they guarantee that this one won't yellow. Okay, so I'm going to get this mixed up, and what we're going to do is I'm going to set it to the side because what I have to do is prepare my molds then that we're going to pour this into. Okay, now to make our mold, we're going to use my favorite little product that I used in a show before, and this is part of a cutting board that I bought at Sam's. Lord help me, I don't know what this material is, but it's a plastic. It's really neat. I actually been using this to paint some stuff on the back. I use it for lots of stuff now. It's really fun to do. But anyway, I've set up my drill bit that I drilled some of the small holes with, or all of the small holes, because it's a small drill bit. And I set a lock on here so where it's going to stop and not go through the bottom of this. Hopefully. So we'll start this up, and it is just a simple process of drill to depth, move it, drill to depth, move it, drill to depth. There's one interesting thing about this drill bit, being that it's a brad point, the blade and everything is curved, and it's kind of tough to see. I'll put some white behind it so you can see a little bit better. But you got this point in the very bottom, right? Look how the bit then on the outside wing curves up towards the center. So the holes you drill are domed with a little hole in the middle. So keep that in mind, because that's really important as we start doing the rest of this mold making stuff. Once I started putting my mix in here, we got to keep track of which end is up and which end is down. Now, real time, it's been about 15 minutes since we mixed this, and this stuff is still drippy, which is really good. You probably should wear gloves. When you're mixing the dust, you probably should wear a mask, just to keep things right. I didn't, but I would advise it. Anyway, clean out all these holes that you just drilled, so everything's good. And then I'm going to take this and just kind of pour it on. I used a syringe the first time. I thought I was being really smart by doing that, and it just took a lot of time and it ruined the syringe. So, you got to keep those for your extra hobbies and not waste them. So anywho, I'm going to get this filled up, and I want it to be just a little bit above the top, right? Because this is the cool thing. This is why I don't care about the bubbles separating out right now. I've got my trash can here so I won't make any mess. I'm going to take my stick and simply just scrape it across the top and level this out. That's all I have to do is level that out. Once it's leveled out, I'm going to set it over here to dry. And then the cool thing is in the drying process, while that looks like it's all the way up to the top, when you look at these, you can see how they're caved in now. They're dished like that. The bubbles are coming out, so it gives it that shape. That shape is extremely important because I found out when putting these together, you got to have this little curved thing, because remember I said the drill makes a hole that's like this? Well, this is going to be the bottom of the plug that goes into the wood, and then that meets the wood, and that's how you glue it in. But how do we get these suckers out? Well, it's a trip to the bandsaw, kids. Now I'm setting my bandsaw up with the resaw blade, which holds things for a cut, right? So this leans against it and lets me make a cut. Remember before I talked about exposing so much blade on how dangerous it is? Well, that's what you have to do with this. It has to be higher than this to be able to cut. So you're going to have some exposed, especially when I go to the shorter one. There'll be a little more exposure. But let me reach over here. I'm going to lock that down. I'm going to grab my push stick, which is always important to have. And so I want to cut the back end off of this, and I don't have to do it all in one stage. The other thing is to resaw, you want a thicker or wider blade like this so it doesn't want to bow out or move. Well, I found out the thicker blade starts to melt this stuff. So you can't do that. So what I'm going to do is keep the thin blade on there. There's a chance it might want to pop out, but if it does, we'll just keep soldiering on and get it done. So let's turn this on, and we'll start feeding it in and really slowly cut. And I don't reach the bottom of the blanks I have in there right now, that's okay. What I don't want to do is take off too much, because you can't put fluorescent epoxy product back on, kind of like wood. Now let me pull this back here a second. I'm going to stop this. You can see how the blade wanted to run out on that. That's why a thicker blade doesn't run out. But you can see how I'm exposing the back sides of this. Now there's a little bit of plastic there, so I'm going to take this and readjust just a tick and see what I can do with that. Also, let me show you these pop out, so I'll start on this end right now and see how that goes. Take it slow, don't rush it. You can see why this stick is so handy because there's a blade exposed right there. So let's stop this. I'm sure there are bandsaw aficionados out there who are just cringing right now at my skill level. Anyway, okay, so now we've exposed those, right? Now here comes the fun thing. Just kind of crinkle it a little bit and then easily pop it out. So now these pop out. Now I have a bunch of different colors, so I'm going to scatter the colors throughout the piece, but this is the part that goes in the hole. This is the part that's exposed on the egg. So I'll keep worrying this away, get all these popped out, and then we'll go back to the lathe and glue these in. Okay, a little bit of thin glue. Remember, that is the top part, so that's going to be the bottom. So that was the surface we saw. This is the surface we cut off. I'm going to push that in. Now back off, Brian, so I don't get super glue on you. Tappy, 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 tap. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of accelerator and just do that to get it to stay in. What I'm doing is I'm alternating my colors. I've got blue, green, and let me show you a mistake. Can you see the delineation there? How it looks dull here, and then you see the solid green right there? This is ultra green. When I mixed up my mix, I didn't let it sit long enough. You got to let it get a little viscous. So I mixed it up right away. It's really runny, put it in great. Well, what happened? All that solid substrate, or solid stuff of the fluorescence went all the way to the bottom. And so it's very thin layer. I can use this, but if I have to cut any of this off, we lose a lot of the luminescence of it. And so that was the issue I was having in the beginning, was that I was told you have to paint the insides white or you won't be able to see the luminescence. And I understand why, because when people put this stuff in, it settles. So if I'd poured it in here, the luminescence would have gone all the way to the bottom of the hole. So my idea of making the little plugs means the luminescence is going to be towards the top, because it will settle. Just make sure that you don't make it too much taller than the hole, so you don't have much to take off. And then you're guaranteed to have all the brightness on the outside, so you don't have to paint these white on the inside or anything. But anyway, let me keep chugging away at this, and I know I got a big one here somewhere. Right. Anyway, I'll keep gluing these in as we go, and then I'll show you how we get these level with the wood after that. But I did figure out one way. If you forget what the colors are, you look inside the cup and then you can see everything. That's green, that's blue. Kind of cool. Also, I've been breathing way too many of the fumes from the accelerator to dry this stuff. Anyway, this crap is really, really, really hard. I hope I mentioned that several times to you. So you might want to find a different two-part epoxy to do yours. I tried it with Thompson lathe tools, which are phenomenally strong. It dulled them instantly. I tried it with a carbide tool. It almost dulled it too. It didn't work. It wanted to chip out. So I found this really cool rasp that I had hidden away. I don't do a lot of woodworking, but occasionally I do. And this thing is awesome for just taking up here and just taking off enough of that to where it goes flush with the wood. Once you start hitting the wood and stuff, you know you're there. That's why this is not a finished shape. We're going to come back and sand this. But look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Nice and flush. I didn't have to work too hard at it. So I'll do this, get all this done, part this off the lathe, and then we'll be ready to put a finish on it. There we go. All sanded, parted off the lathe. It really looks pretty cool. That's not an uncomplimentary color for this beautiful burl, this beautiful maple burl. But anyway, so we want to put a finish on here, right? So the finish I'm going to use is Watco Danish oil. So we'll take this and just pour it in my cup here. Yada, yada, like that. That's enough right there. I like this stuff. It really works well. So I'm going to take a paper towel, dunk it in, and then we just start applying it here. You do not want to use a finish that is opaque or the light won't show through. So you got to make sure that it is a clear finish you put on here so the luminescence shines to its best ability. You put a coat of this on here, really nice, let it soak in for 15 minutes. Then you apply another coat, let that sit for 20, 30 minutes, and then buff it and rub it off. But isn't that cool? That is one of the neatest projects we've done in a while, and I can't wait to see this in the dark, so I'm going to go turn the lights off. Wow, how does that look? That is awesome. A little more light on it and it'll glow even brighter all night long. See, kids, you don't have to be afraid of the dark. Well, until the next time on Wood Turning, keep turning. Huh?
The American Beauty Tim uses was made by Robust Tools. All our lathes have a 7-year warranty. Our tool wrists feature a hardened rod on top. Lots of sizes to fit your lathe. Robust, because the making matters.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a wood turner for wood turners.